They didn't expect me to show up. I saw it in Vanessa's eyes the moment she cracked the door chain. One blink. One smirk. A glass of wine dangling from her hand like a prop. Why did that old parasite show up? She said, louder this time, "There's no room for you." Behind her, Wesley stood with his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor like a boy caught stealing. My son, my blood. Silent dot the music pulsed through the walls. Strangers laughed in my kitchen. And the house I had built with Raymond brick by stubborn brick was breathing someone else's air. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I turned, smiling the kind of smile you give when the world thinks you're finished. The kind of smile that hides a storm. They mistook my silence for surrender. The next morning, I returned. I didn't knock this time. I slipped in behind one of Vanessa's cousins hauling out garbage. The house reeked of cheap wine and garlic. My living room was filled with bodies draped over my furniture. Paper plates stacked high with food that wasn't mine. A teenage girl scrolled on her phone in the recliner where Raymond used to fall asleep after long drives. My mantle was bare of everything that had mattered dour. Anniversary photo? Wesley's crooked son drawings from second grade. Even the seashell frame Raymond once glued together while laughing at his own clumsiness. In their place, glossy, airbrushed smiles of Vanessa's family, strangers pretending. This house had always been theirs. Every trace of me had been scrubbed away. My apron gone. My spice rack gone. Even the ceramic canisters my sister had given me had vanished. I opened the fridge. Kombucha bottles. Expensive cheese. And a half-drunk bottle of my wine with the label torn off, as if to erase even my taste. When I turned, Vanessa stood in the doorway, sunglasses still on indoors. "You gave the house to Wesley, right? So this is ours now." She said it like she'd rehearsed the line in front of a mirror. I didn't reply. I just studied her face, then the walls, the cabinets. The rug where Raymond had once dropped to his knees in laughter over something small and stupid. They thought I was powerless. They thought wrong. That night, in a cheap roadside motel that smelled of disinfectant, I sat at the tiny desk with my leather notebook. My hand shook not from fear, but from fury pressed too long into silence. They called me a guest in my own house. They called me a burden. But the deed still calls me owner. Raymond had made me promise before he died, keep something tucked away. A clause no one would notice. A safeguard against betrayal. I had kept that promise. What Wesley and Vanessa didn't know was that I never signed the house over. His name was only a successor, not an owner. And no one, not even Wesley, could sell, rent, or alter the property without my consent. The silence they mocked would become the noose they never saw tightening. But patience needed proof, so I returned again. I strolled past the open curtains, head low, phone recording in my pocket. Their laughter spilled out like poison. Once the old lady croaks, "We'll flip this place," Vanessa sneered, waving her hand like brushing me off the earth. Her sister laughed. "It's got to be worth close to $1 million now." And then Wesley's voice. My son's voice, cold, certain. She won't fight. She never does. She just disappears. I stood there long enough to hear them joke about tearing out the garden Raymond planted, painting over the walls we argued about for weeks. Calling my furniture grandma junk, I saved every word. The file glowed on my phone like a weapon waiting to be unsatiated. Geneva was waiting. Always sharper than the rest of us, a retired realtor who had sold half the coast and never forgotten a single clause in a contract. She read the deed, smiled slowly. "It's still yours." All of it. They don't know the game hasn't even started. I told her about the recordings, about Vanessa's words, Wesley's silence. She didn't flinch. "You're not powerless," Geneva said, pouring coffee black as judgment. "You're just patient. And patience is a weapon if you hold it long enough." Her words dug deep. They became my armor. Monday morning came. The air was salt-sharp and mercilessly clear. At 8:02, the locksmith arrived. By 8:07, Geneva stood on the porch, deed in one hand, like scripture. By 8:10, Cynthia Price, attorney at law, unshakable in charcoal, gray-handed Wesley an envelope. "Official notice. You have 48 hours to vacate." Vanessa's scream cracked the morning like glass. "You can't do this." "We've been here for months." "Squatting," Geneva corrected. "You've been squatting." Wesley looked at me then, desperate. "Mom, come on. We could have talked about this." I met his eyes with the softness of a blade. "This isn't overreaction, Wesley. This is legal housekeeping." The locksmith clicked each lock into place. One by one, their keys turned useless in their hands. By 10 a.m., the house was mine again. By noon, a for sale sign was planted in the yard, standing tall as a headstone. The sale happened fast. Geneva's network whispered it through back channels. No open houses. No strangers touching my walls. By Wednesday, a woman from San Francisco walked through quietly. Her eyes steady. "It feels like someone loved this place," she said. I nodded. She didn't need to know who. By Friday, the papers were signed. Clean, final. I walked out of Geneva's office lighter than I had been in decades. On Saturday morning, sent Wesley one line. "The house has been sold. No greeting. No explanation. No apology. Delivered." That was enough. I took only what mattered. My percolator. Raymond's fishing cap. A faded photo of the porch we built. Still sun-bleached and chipped. Everything else could rot with their laughter. On the road out of Santa Barbara, I stopped once at a rest area overlooking the ocean. I opened my notebook, flipped through the words that had carried me through long, silent nights. And I found the line Geneva gave me. "You're not powerless. You're just patient." I underlined it twice. Patience had turned into power. Back in Tucson, I met with my lawyer. "I want to start a scholarship," I said, "for single mothers going into nursing. We'll call it the Hartley Fund. The house they mocked me for would build futures they couldn't touch. In the evenings." I sat on my porch with coffee in my old mug, notebook closed beside me. My phone buzzed, Wesley's name lighting up again and again. No voicemail. No words. Just missed calls stacked like bricks he couldn't shape into an apology. I let it ring. Silence. Once my cage had become my weapon. They thought they erased me. They thought my silence meant surrender, but silence remembers. Silence waits. And when it breaks, it shatters bonds you thought were unbreakable. That's why I tell this story. Because maybe you've been dismissed too. Maybe you've been erased from your own life, mocked for being too soft, too patient. If so, you'll understand. For more stories of betrayal, survival, and the psychology of silence, subscribe to Shattered Bonds. These aren't just tales. They're reminders. And remember when they laugh at your quiet act. That's how you take back everything. Don't miss the next one. Subscribe to Shattered Bonds. Because silence isn't surrender. It's strategy.